This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined once again by Elements of Wellness, and we're here with the owner, our board-certified hormonal coach, board-certified drugless practitioner. She's also a best-selling author. Jodi Harty, welcome back. How are you today?
Hi, Merry Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. It's snowing where I am and
Oh,
minus 28 Celsius. So,
oh my goodness. She's in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, everyone, just in case you're wondering. God bless. What an amazing to have a beautiful white Christmas like this.
yes, absolutely. And we got loved ones coming in and everybody driving safe. So if it is bad weather where you are, please be safe. Please
Yes.
be mindful. Be responsible. Don't make decisions that could alter lives.
Thank you so much for this. And you're here, as always, helping people, even your listeners with your intro, reminding them to take it easy, take it slow. And you're helping people with trauma, grief, recovery, chronic pain, and so much more. So just give us a little overview as to what Elements of Wellness has to offer. And I think we're going to kind of hone in on, chronic pain today, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I just got a cough. I'm going to mute myself for just a moment.
I
Okay,
just got
sorry
over
about that.
something. It's all good. Go ahead.
So 8 years ago, I was involved in an MVA, which is motor vehicle accident, and my youngest daughter died in that collision instantly due to weather conditions. I was shattered from the hips down, so not only emotionally and mentally from the loss of Marley, but also like physically shattered, where I was living in the hospital. Um, they predicted 10 months. And being in the alternative field since 1996, I was able to implement everything I knew about movement, nutrition, energy, somatics. I had all of that training at that time. And instead of the 10 months that they predicted, I was out in 4. So I should not be walking without a cane. I should not be walking without a walker at times. And I'm doing both. And if you ever come see me do one of my talks, I kind of like do a little jump, a little hop, right? Like in heels, because I think it's super important that we not put restrictions on ourselves, that we aim for the stars. And if we hit them, fantastic. But if not, then we've accelerated our recovery just by thinking of all the potential things that we want to be able to do. So that's the first thing about me and how I approach chronic pain and recovery.
Wow. And you can really empathize. Obviously, you've experienced it inside and out. So, thank you for sharing that and to know that, it really is possible to heal your body, to heal your mind, to heal your brain. There's so much that goes into it, though. You have to have the will. And it's hard for people, even around this time, right? And I'm sure it's hard for you, the loved ones that you lost. And, just during this time of year, could you just give me a little, insight into a lot of people aren't so well, right?
Hmm. Yeah. So I always like to combine grief and chronic pain in kind of the same bundle because both take up so much brain space. And people don't realize how much energy it takes for the brain to function, to keep us moving forward. And grief, when we get stuck in it or when we're in the acute phases, takes up a lot of brain space because we're trying to make sense out of everything. We're trying to come up with stories that make it make sense and help us move through it because you're never going to get over it. I'll speak personally for myself. So losing Marley, she was 4 years old. She'd be 12 this year. I don't know if I'd still be buying her Barbies and little makeup and stuff, or if she'd be more of a tomboy. I don't, and going into like the hunting and the trapping like her dad does, right? So it's all those stories that come up and special occasions, especially Christmas, can really accentuate that. Now, shifting to chronic pain, it is the same. It takes a lot of brain space to manage chronic pain. Every day I wake up and I'm like, okay, how's the body feeling? And I lay there for about 10, 15 minutes and like, is this going to be a good day? Is this going to be a slower day? Weather changes. Barometric pressure plays an impact on that. So being mindful of like what the weather is doing in 3 days so that you can prepare for success. And then add a special occasion in there, like Christmas or Easter or birthdays or something. And now you've got guests arriving. Most people want to get their home ready. There's dinners and breakfasts and lunches, and maybe we're going shopping. Maybe we're going to go to a museum. Like, what event are we going to do? What memory are we going to create? And then how many steps can I do? How many steps can I do in order to be successful today and be responsible for all the things that I normally am and the extras? So this actually creates a lot of brain space where the brain is constantly thinking. Now, merging grief and chronic pain, when you have spousal betrayal or you lose a child, so both are grief in its own, you instantly receive brain damage. Chronic pain mimics that brain damage. And the longer we're in chronic pain, for every year, we lose 10 to 20% of gray matter of our brain. So that's cognitive ability, that's memory retention, that's being able to learn something new. That is our gracefulness, our balance. We become clumsy. We get body dysmorphia of how much space we actually need in a room. So that affects us drastically. And we think we're losing our mind. We think we're going crazy. We think we're being dumb. We think that, it's a hormonal imbalance or something, and we're grasping at straws. But really, chronic pain has a huge impact on the way that our cells behave, the way that our brain behaves. And when we're losing that gray matter, we feel trapped. We feel grief. Like I look at it and I'm like, Marley's dad waits until, after the birth of Jesus to go Christmas shopping and is always like last minute.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how am I going to keep up with him? How am I going to do all the things that he has to do and be pleasant to be around? Because we can get snappy, we can get edgy, we can get exhausted and need a nap and feel like we're barely thriving. So depending on how you deal with chronic pain really depends on how you're going to be able to function. So there are strategies that you can start implementing to help with these things so that they're easier.
Well, thank you for that. And talk about procrastination and last minute. I suffer with that too. Today's the day, and I just started, wrapping this morning. It happens. All right.
That's fair.
Yeah, but the body, I mean, it's not easy. You offer people a way to test the body, right? And, could you just share a little bit of how it works, to work with you and heal our body?
Yeah, so I really believe in cellular health first. We can do all the somatics, we can do all the meditations, we can do all the self-growth and the healing and the shadow work. And we're going to hit a glass ceiling every single time if we're not giving our cells what they need to help us heal. Okay. They just don't have the bandwidth. They don't have the nutrients. They don't have the structure, or the information to do what we're asking it to do. So I start everybody with DNA testing, and we only test the genes that can be activated. Okay. There's no point in testing genes that cannot be activated. Okay. Because we'll be wasting our money. And with these 27 genes, they give us really good indicators. They can explain to us why we feel so much pain. There are a lot of people out there that if their genes are not working accordingly or the way that they should, and this is from the moment you are born to the time you're no more. So like DNA never changes. It's not like RNA that changes if you give it what it needs. DNA is chronic and it is for life. And there are some people out there that have genes that are not working correctly, and it will create more pain signals in the body. It will create more anxiety in the body, depression in the body.
Mm.
It will make ADHD, ADD, and some autism
Other.
diagnosis
Yep.
worse, right? So it's really important that we get to like the soil where our roots are growing, and that is in our genetics. Because if we can't activate our genes to work accordingly, we can be eating all the right things, we can be drinking all the water, we can be eating all the good things. And I say that in quotations because even some of the good foods may not be good for you
Yeah.
directly. So gene activation is crucial. The next thing that I do is I do hormonal testing. Okay, now this looks at everything from your basic hormones to your liver, because that's where we detoxify all of our hormones from. And if our liver is not functioning accordingly, we're going to be into estrogen dominance, or we're going to flatline with our estrogen. Then it looks at the colon. So many gurus will say, treat the colon, treat the colon, treat the colon. If we treat the colon and we get the results and you've got a beautiful, perfect colon, you actually don't need help here, then you have just wasted your investment for treating the colon. So the problem would be in the liver.
Okay.
Right. And I want to know why the liver is not working then. Now, other times it is the liver and the colon combined. And it's like, okay, well, we need to
Yeah.
treat the colon because the
Really.
liver needs someplace to dump. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I fully believe in testing before I recommend any supplements, before I recommend any protocol in that regard, because I don't want you wasting your money or your investment or your time. It also looks at 4-point cortisols. It looks at all of your adrenals, which is your stress response. Adrenals control thyroid, not the other way around. And in Western
Where
medicine,
are the adrenal glands?
oh shit.
All right. No, are they here or are they?
They're in, so thyroid is here.
Yeah.
Adrenals are more in the chest cavity,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
So sorry, man, I might get held to task. You're putting me on spot, and that's a question that I've never get asked. I
No,
just
no,
know
you're
that.
not a doctor, but I'm just curious as a friend. Like, I don't even know where my adrenals are. I was trying to figure that out. No, but no worries.
Well, and an adrenals control so much, like mineral corticoids, which are like 10 different systems of the body. They control gluteocorticoids, which are like 12 systems of the body. So there's so much more. And when we're actually looking at the adrenals, there are three different functions systems that they control. And if these are not working, they're going to affect the thyroid. They're going to make it look like your thyroid is not working. It's going to increase your cortisol and your stress response. So the body cannot heal if it's in survival mode. And if you're in survival mode, what is the priority to make hormones? Hormones are for procreation. And if we're stressed, if we're not working, if we're not functioning, then we are going to have hormonal imbalance. So
Yeah.
very key, look at the adrenals, look at the 4-point cortisols, melatonin. Huge thing. I've seen people over supplementing because they think that they need better sleep. So they'll go grab melatonin.
Yeah.
Normal levels are 17 to 84 when you use dried urine hormonal testing. I had one lady in the 3,500s, and she wondered why she had short-term memory loss, chronic
Oh
fatigue,
my
couldn't think
goodness.
herself out of a box. Well, yeah, you are over
Uh-huh.
supplementing and causing yourself harm. And then, like, if I use myself as an example, when I tested myself, melatonin, I was at a 2. I did not sleep. I would sleep for like maybe an hour or two, and then I would be wired for 3 to 4 hours. So, of course, I'm going to add in a sleep supplement, but not just melatonin. I'm going to add something that is actually going to help me reset my circadian rhythm, right? So, they're all things. We have the DNA that addresses the chronic, and then we have the dried urine hormonal testing that addresses the acute. We can fix this. We can slow things down. I can see endometriosis before you're actually diagnosed. I can see PCOS before you're actually diagnosed. I can see Hashimoto's before you're actually diagnosed. It takes 5 to 7 years for women to get diagnosed with these hormonal diseases. And the reason why is because we weren't actually included in the hormonal studies until 1990. it was deemed unethical to study fertile women, which is fair. And even now, only we don't even get a full 25% because that is split between women and animals because we're inconsistent. So most of the studies are still done on men who have a 24-hour cycle, and we have anywhere from like 22 days to 52 days. Like we are not the same. So we are really hard to study. And this is why we feel in this society that women's health has been disregarded and we have to fight so hard. But it's because the blood tests are not designed for us.
Oh, I didn't know this. That's amazing that they don't study us as much or didn't study us as much.
It's, I understand why. And
Yeah.
because like how do you study us? How do you study something that is constantly changing week by week?
Yeah.
Right? We are not the same week by week. We have different phases of our cycle. So
Oh,
that makes it really inconsistent. And then how do you find women that have the same cycle?
oh
Because
gosh.
if we do, if we get together in a group, we're going to Bluetooth, my kids call it, and we're going to sync together, and then it's going to change everything again. So we're so hard to study. And then hormonal replacement, I want to talk about this, especially when it comes to chronic pain, because a lot of women are diagnosed with frozen shoulder, they're diagnosed with hip issues, and they're told that it's because they're in a hormonal imbalance.
Mm.
Estrogen drops, we experience chronic pain. Where in fact, if we just correct it, that pain level goes away. But I've had women on HRT or even bioidentical hormone replacement
Hmm.
therapy, and their numbers are off the charts. So the progesterone gets extremely high, where it's causing fatigue, it's causing mood swings, it's causing irritability, low sex drive, because progesterone is a relaxant, right? It's like we get to like just relax, but we don't want anybody to bug us. We want to just sleep. We want no stress, all of that. If we raise estrogen, then that also puts us into estrogen dominance. So the HRT, I'm understanding that the US is now they're not utilizing the right tests to create the balance because they're still using blood.
Oh, interesting. Breaking up a little bit there, so I'm just gonna wait. Can you hear
Oh,
me? Can you
can you
see
hear me?
me? Yep, yep. No, perfect. You were
I can
breaking
hear
up a
you.
bit.
Yeah. Good. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Did you get everything though?
Yep,
Like, did you get
yep.
that message?
You were just chopping up at the
Okay.
end, so I didn't want to overstep.
Okay.
Now I forgot what I was going to ask you, but that's okay.
Okay.
We're talking, by the way, and we do have to remind everyone, Jodi Harty here, owner of Elements of Wellness. So thank you. And she obviously is an expert with hormones, and those are things that I don't understand. I hear all the time that people going for these hormonal treatments, and they're gonna adjust their body and fix them. And like, really, is this helping us live longer? The fact that we are replenishing, or what's the word? Getting hormones that our body depletes naturally.
Yes and no, right? So I always take it with a grain of salt. So when I work with clients on HRT or BHRT, I want to see how they're absorbing, so the metabolites, and that's what the urine actually tests is the metabolites. They don't test the serum. The metabolites is what gets into the cell. So I want to see how well they're absorbing. If they're in overabundance, I'm going to advise them to go have a conversation with their doctor and possibly adjust their dose so that we can get them more normalized, right? Because when we're in overabundance, that leaves us open to cancers. That leaves us open
Yeah.
to certain diseases. That leaves us open to mental health issues. That leaves us open to chronic pain. So I want balance. And I would not be here without Western medicine. They saved my legs, they saved my life. I love Western medicine. It allowed my mom to live 10 additional years after she was originally diagnosed with cancer, right? So I don't think Western medicine is a villain, but I do think we need a combination of alternatives. So when doctors are open to listening to the results of alternative testing and saying, hey, this isn't adding up, and I'm showing that I have an abundance, or I'm showing that it's not sufficient for me and I need more, then we can integrate the supplements.
Yeah.
Then we can work with Western medicine. Then we can start creating balance. And so BHRT and HRT are not the villains. It's just a matter of how well our individual bodies are absorbing it versus
Okay.
it just floating willy-nilly in our serum versus the cell.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Does that make it
Totally
a little
does.
bit easier now?
No, it does. Absolutely. And then, for example, my girlfriend had a hysterectomy a few years ago, and I know her body has changed dramatically, but she's on, supplemental hormones now, and she says she feels fine. She doesn't feel anything different, but these are things, that as I'm getting older and I'm worried about this, obviously with our bodies, it's like, wow, I just can't believe that these things are possible now. She can feel as good and make all the hormones now, with the drug to help her. But it's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be really clear that, like, when you're on a synthetic form of hormone therapy, you're not making
Making.
it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
again, I can't speak, but you know what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say. Please,
right?
yes.
No, and that's the difference between supplements that stimulate the body to make it on its own versus being on a synthetic medication that now we're adding it into the system so the system doesn't have to think about it. The system doesn't have to stress out. And in some cases, okay, I'll use diabetes as a really good case. I want you taking your diabetic medicine. I
Yeah.
want that synthetic medicine in your body, okay? If you don't have it, you die. So there is a time and a place, but it can be worked in together with alternative medicine. I want to work with your doctor. So many of my clients will see me and then they'll go get their blood work done, 6 months later, and their doctor's amazed and they're like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, I'm doing this. And they're like, yeah, 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 yeah. So they may not want to work with me, but they are. And I love that, right? Other doctors are like, okay, what's her name? Because I want to start referring to her.
Yeah. Well, hold on. And just, for someone who is, tuning in about hormonal, I don't want to say it wrong. I guess real hormones, right? You're helping us with, not
Mhm. Yeah,
synthetic.
yeah.
How long do people, a lot of people, they hear about supplements and think that's just good enough. How long should we be on hormonal supplements? Are we, the ones that, for example, you recommend? Is it something steady that you do for the rest of your life now? Is that what we're realizing it's important to continue to do throughout our lives?
It really depends on you. And so I have clients that test every 6 months and sometimes every year. Okay. I test every year because I'm more in a maintenance plan now. So then I can catch when things fluctuate. And there are times where I take away my liver support, I take away my adrenals, I take
Okay.
away, my progesterone supplement, right? There are other times where I test and I'm like, oh,
Oh,
liver's starting to fumble again. So let's get back on that. So it really depends on how well you maintain.
and how
And
often are you supposed to test?
I would say on average once a year, because
Okay.
think of it as a physical, right? Once you get out of the therapy part of the program, right? Where it's like, what are we hitting? What are we doing correctly? What do we need to hit stronger, right? Then we're testing every 6 months. Once we get into a maintenance, then we're testing once a year. And I want to be clear, we're only testing using the dried urine. Once the DNA test is done, that's a one and done that never
Got
changes.
it.
This is
Yep.
you forever, right? So the dried urine test is the one that we are using to help with what we want to achieve with our doctor, right? So it very fluctuates. I don't want you on hundreds or thousands of dollars of supplements every single month, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, I want you on a custom-made supplement for you based on your genetics, and that's it. But some clients, because of their genetics, because of their previous diagnoses and health history, we need to stay on something always, right? In
Mm-hmm.
other cases, like myself, I can fluctuate. I can go off of things as my tests change. I can go on things as my chest change. But the most important is that I stay in that balanced area.
Got it. Got it. Okay, good to know. We still got 5 more minutes left in the show. What
Perfect.
else do you want to make sure we have to cover for today?
I want to make sure that we cover like nutrition and how it relates to chronic pain. So we've talked a lot about supplements. We talked about HRT, BHRT, how it can affect chronic pain. But really, supplements and synthetic hormones are not the game be all end all. We can be taking all of these things, and if our nutrition is not matching what we want our supplements to be doing, we might as well just throw them down the toilet because they are not the magic cure. We have to be cognizant of what we're ingesting, whether that be food, whether that be what we're drinking, what we're injecting. All of that plays a part in how well our body heals. And it sucks because there's
Yeah.
so many diets out there. There's so many gurus saying, do this, do that, do this, do that. And you try this and you try that and it doesn't work. But I'm really focused on, okay, what is going to work for you? Let's figure out you on a cellular basis and let's give you that inner knowing and that inner communication reestablished between the body and the brain. And when we know that, when our chronic pain gets out of hand, we can look at what we're putting into our body
Yeah.
and go, okay, am I missing the mark here? Did I fall off the boat a little bit? Did I go deep sea diving? And if you did, that's okay. But you have the tools in order to get yourself back on track. And that's just the nutrition piece. That's not even the life piece of like setting yourself up for success, delegating, asking for help, taking the naps when you need to, making an activity when you need to. So there's a lot that encompasses chronic pain and how to make it better.
Good. And let me just ask me, where you live, obviously it's very cold, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people in the cold weather. But I mean, could you stay heated indoors all the time? Is there heating pads, or what do you do for those that do live in cold weather, places? What are the things? I mean, obviously you're going to urge everyone to stay inside, but that's not always easier, right? Easier said than
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. So barometric pressure, it affects us whether we're
That's
indoors
it.
or outdoors. Okay. So
Okay.
that's rule number one. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether you're indoors or
Okay.
outdoors. Barometric pressure is going to affect you. Now, if I step outside in minus 28 degrees like it is right now, then yeah, I'm going to start seizing because the body is trying to stay warm,
Yep.
right? And everything's going to get tense and rigid. So yes, that is going to affect chronic pain more. But this is what I used to recommend to all of my massage clients before the collision. And I'm so glad I had this knowledge. Ice.
Okay.
At the end of the day, every night before you go to bed. So there's no putzing or tidying or tinkering in the garage. You're going to get out an ice pack and not a beanbag because that doesn't get
Okay.
cold enough, but you're going to get out an ice pack. You're going to ice for as long as you can to that area. So none of this 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off where we stimulate the lymphatics. We want to actually decrease inflammation, which is heat and pain. And we want to increase circulation, which is more red cells, more white cells, more oxygen to that area, which all equal up faster healing. So we're going to do that every single night to that area. So
Great.
works great for arthritis, works great for chronic pain. Amazing. Then if we want to use heat, we're going to use moist heat. So shower, hot bath, hot water bottle wrapped in a moist towel in the morning because
Okay.
moist heat penetrates
Oh,
into the muscle where dry heat is just superficial, feels good, but doesn't do anything. So those are the two things that people can start doing when in chronic pain. Because if we're not decreasing the inflammation, we're just teaching the body to stay in that heated, pained state.
all right. Thank you so much for all this information today. And I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas again to you, your family, to all those listening. How can we reach out to you for more information?
Yes, absolutely. You can email me at Jodi, Jodi, elementsofwellness@gmail.com, and I would be happy to respond. You get me. You don't get an AI. You don't get a bot. You get me.
Perfect. Good. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk again hopefully next week. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. And again, Merry Christmas and happy holidays,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.